Hello. Today we're going to be reading some more of Sacred and Terrible Air by Robert Kurvitz and translated by Group Ibex. I read the first 2 chapters in an earlier video, which I will link in the description. And we are continuing on. So, here we go. Hi everybody. Just jumping in here before we start reading. These 2 chapters today contain some intense subject matter. So, if you are not in a place where you can hear about violence, particularly of a sexual nature, and involving children, then please do not listen to this video. It's just alluded to. It's not described in graphic detail or anything like that, but I just wanted to put out that little warning so that you're not shocked when that comes up, because obviously it's quite intense. So, but yeah, if you can stick around, then here we go. Let's jump in. 3. Non-entity. The Roman Gorod Conference defines 10 different types of missing persons. The 9th of them, non-entity, is a gross violation of the International Declaration of Human Rights. Such a person has not only been eliminated by some violent state body, but the documentation of their former existence has also been made to disappear. This special case of political fading, cursing of the memory, has been inflicted on a number of historical figures with varying degrees of success. In the case of the country of Mesk, for example, a loss of as much as 10% of the historical scale of its entire culture can be statistically established. We will not dwell on the successful examples. It would be impossible to talk about a day that did not exist, but we all leave behind small traces, and the censor is only human. Thus, it may happen that the obliterated citizen becomes, thanks to their non-entity, a significantly more recognized historical figure than their colleague who was simply shot in the head behind a waste disposal facility. What other prominent narrative would have saved the Samaran Communist Party cutthroat Julius Kuznetsky from the obscurity of history, if not that funny photo? As recording technology has developed, even more complex processes have been added to the craft of filing the emperor's head off of coins. For a well-oiled, degenerate bureaucratic worker state, it's not exactly difficult to do a little spring cleaning of its punch cards. But, in the case of photographs, and also some particularly curious examples in the age of film material, the cleaning takes on a certain shade of technical finesse, one that we can admire in the above-mentioned disappearance of Commissar Julius Kuznetsky, who, under the retoucher's magic wand, vanished from on board the steamer Mazov on that sweltering Sunday morning. Julius was a nasty person, an uneducated peasant. His young eyes did not see the world revolution. The Commissar's meteoric rise began later, in Samara. Not having the slightest clue of Mazov's ideals, he was careless in giving his victims titles with a politically accusatory connotation. This ultimately proved fatal for him. One day, apparently, the chairman of the Presidium, Nezhnitsky, just couldn't stand this embarrassment. Tell me, Kuzna, how can it be that Comrade Zadorov is a counter-revolutionary when the revolution already happened over 50 years ago? And why are Comrade Bronsky's Mazovian, Nezhnitskyan beliefs irreversibly narrow-minded? I'm Nezhnitsky, Saburmat Nezhnitsky, that's my name. In certain circles, these 2 photos, the original and the retouched side by side, have become a pop-cultural phenomenon. The rat-faced smile that Kuznetsky conjured on his face that day adds spiritual value to the curiosity. Well, look at him. Who wouldn't want to wipe this nasty weasel from history? An even worse fate befell the third figure in this photo, Aram Ukatomsky, Mazov's faithful revolutionary friend from the 11-day government, an eminently talented agronomist, geneticist, and one of the 3 breeders of the Ulan yellow potato variety. A rare apolitical figure whose unassuming behavior and irreplaceable contribution to the table of the world's working class saved him from a total of 3 rounds of cleaning. That is, until Ukatomsky's scientific impartiality offended someone's feelings at the 21st Plenum of Geneticists. It turns out that modern genetics is simply not compatible with a Nizhnitskian tabula rasa philosophy, where, in a state of revolutionary spirit, even gooseberry seeds can be convinced to become figs. With horror, Ukatomsky found himself likening himself to a small plasticine snake when speaking before the Presidium. Having never written criticism about himself before, the poor scholar overextended himself so blatantly that even in the then lush, self-deprecating atmosphere, it was difficult for those present to listen to his words. Since this memorable performance, Ukatomsky's name has been attached to the epithet of bootlicking. The historical character having been completely compromised, the merciful Chairman Nizhnitsky decided to spare the memory of his older and once more worthy comrade. By the night of the process, he was sent behind the waste disposal facility, and later all traces of Ukatomsky's existence were eliminated. But the history falsification failed. The retouchers absent-mindedly left one remarkable photo with Ukatomsky in it untouched, the same photo from which Commissar Julius Kuznetsky entered oblivion earlier. Technically, however, the most impressive story is Ignas Nielsen's fall from the cannon, a Mazovian schoolteacher turned prophet. Likewise, a significant figure in the history of the communist movement, he became a disembodied spirit under the hands of Vasa's censors. The character of Mazov's apocalyptic Shrike suddenly became somewhat burdensome for the image of the Social Democratic North. That's how they engineered the disappearance of Nielsen with Grad, which had recently repelled the revolution. To the dismay of the censors, dozens of hours of film footage of Mazov had been captured during the technically progressive 11-day government, where the revolutionary icon was almost always accompanied by his best friend and comrade-in-arms, Nielsen. Destruction of all material would have raised suspicion. That's how it came to be that a ghostly gray cytoplasm is permanently floating in Mazov's right hand. It took decades for historians to solve this blood-curdling mystery. Even then, many believe that the cytoplasm is communism itself. 4. VIDKUN Hird. 12mm film buzzes in the projector. On the couch next to the white fabric screen, Khan sits next to Machajek, staring in disbelief at his square coffee cup on a square saucer. He picks up the spoon to stir in the sugar and carefully approaches the cup. In Café Kino, everything is made of glass or white. The chair where Jesper sits and fiddles with the projector is white. The soundproof walls of the booth are made of glass. The sign on which the white fabric screen falls is made of glass. The sofa where Khan and Machajek feel uncomfortable is white. There is a stuffed albino tiger in a glass case in the middle of the cafe. Just make sure you don't break anything. It will cost you dearly. Let me guess. The agent twists the Astra between his fingers until it's as soft as he likes. Your design. One of my students. This place is like a movie screen, a white sheet. We have been projected here, you know. What is it like to be? It's not at all cinema screen. Do you understand? Yes, I do. It's uncomfortable. The boy is a bit jittery, sure, but he's talented. He needed this sort of high-visibility project. And this is the only place where you can quickly get behind a projector. So, I try, to be open-minded. Jesper, together with the tiger, looks towards Khan. The tiger's glass eyes are in an even brighter blue than the interior designer's. "Hey man, I'm open-minded." Magicek takes a pencil and a notebook from his jacket pocket. "Well then," begins Jesper. "A relative of one of my co-workers works as an operator, makes docks. Last fall he told me about his new project, with Gessel. Do you know Conrad Gessel? He mainly does criminal stuff, doesn't he?" "Not exclusively. Gosta, that's the name of my operator, tells me how he's afraid to do it and asks me if he should. He has a child at home too now, and so on. The point is that the film is about, and this is where I got interested, VIDKUN Heerd." "Oh my god. Enough about VIDKUN Heerd." Wait, I agree, it's a well-worn topic, but he was in Orta then. He couldn't possibly be in Vasa, and so on, but I still thought I'd keep an eye on it, And then 2 weeks ago, Costa comes to talk to me. Tells me they're on the verge of a breakthrough here. They've been sitting down with VIDKUN Heerd in Kronstadt for the past 6 months. Unbelievable. And they allegedly have a strategy there. They impress Heerd. VIDKUN likes Gessel. Gessel is Nordic, white as snow, well-read and a good debater. So, Heerd wants to impress the interviewer and starts chatting. Bragging. Gessel gives the impression that these rapists with a wild imagination have been seen before, that VIDKUN Heerd is just a small player. Yes. For the first 3 months, VIDKUN just hints, arouses interest, references unverifiable dates, talks about going to the beach. Gessel doesn't even notice. He discusses philosophy with VIDKUN, about overcoming good and evil. I have it all written down here. Jesper pats the folder on the cube-shaped glass table. Then one day, VIDKUN has had enough. The man flicks the switch and the small bulb at the heart of the projector lights up. "I have to warn you now," he looks in Khan's direction. "Those of us whose profession does not include ditches and missing children could take some of VIDKUN's words to heart." Therese piles a 6th spoonful of sugar into his black coffee and pauses for a moment. After a noticeable beat of silence, he sticks his needle-sharp HB pencil into the pencil sharpener and pretends to be busy with it, an awkward smile on his face. "Dude, when will you ever understand? Ditches and missing children, that's your topic too." "Okay, Khan," sighs Jesper. "Ditches and lost children, it is my topic." "To ditches and lost children?" Therese cheerfully raises his sugar-filled coffee cup in the air and waits. "Skull," exclaims Khan. "Skull," Jesper states, and fishes the lime slice out of his glass of water. He chews on it, his brow thoughtfully furrowed at the sour taste. "The tape, Jesper." "Ugh." Superhuman, rapist, child rapist, former member of Helmdahl, the fascist party of NFD. VIDKUN Heerd appears on the white screen. With one hand cuffed to the chair and the other resting genteelly on his cheek, it's clear the philosopher of the future is aware of the presence of the camera. Mindful of it, he raises his northern bulldog-cheeked chin to a certain noble angle. There, he casts glances up and down from the recesses of his eye sockets, hair carefully combed to the side according to the 30-year-old fashion, and one leg resting across the other knee. VIDKUN could be said to be a vain man, refusing to go down in history in his color-coded prison overalls. He converses with Conrad Gessel in his black shirt uniform. That had been just one of his many conditions. "Some people are born posthumously," he exclaims in the ancient Arden dialect, archaic idiom. He injects an abundance of rural charm into modernly refined sentiment. The 6-digit clock on the table shows that the 3rd hour of the August 12th interview is in progress. "Did you know, VIDKUN, that I have done a master's thesis on Elder Arden? I can smuggle you literature about it." "Oh, that would be very nice of you, Conrad. You know how I feel about the selection of the library here." They both chuckle to signal understanding. "Arden is the natural language of our tribe," continues VIDKUN in a declarative tone. "This vocabulary was adapted and developed by ancient mammoth hunters who settled in the slopes of Katla millennia ago. Arden has certain significant advantages in the basic matters of love, of wisdom, advantages that continental languages lack. Ardent is our nature. The Mater Vassin, a metropolitan bastard, regressed to continental, imbued with grad. This diluted language is incapable of expressing truth. All the sentences in this dysgenic compote ultimately express the same thing: international gibberish. The next 100 years will see our tribe return to its original language. This will give birth to a new era in terms of love of wisdom. You've already talked about it quite a lot. I also read your notes on this topic. This is all very interesting, but don't you think that your own historical character is sabotaging the finer aspects of your teaching? What? Haird's eyes suddenly light up. The deep furrows on his cheeks widen, and his mouth snarls in disdain. Conrad pretends not to notice VIDKUN's temper and continues. Well, I see the logic in your observations. Don't you think it's difficult for people to accept the scientific validity of a theory when it comes from the mouth of a convicted child rapist? Mating is a completely different practice for our tribe than the social porn propaganda of the modern century, with its romance and whatever else it is feeding us with. You know that, Conrad. One day, when their impotent morals have led the continental nations to extinction, you will then realize what I am telling you. Come on, let's look at it with the eyes of an ordinary citizen for a moment. An ordinary citizen lets his daughter go to school with kips and kokyos ever since she was a child in a racial cauldron. An ordinary citizen lets his child be raped by ruberoids there. You understand that this is how it is when 4 girls are sent to such a school. Conrad does notice what slipped from the philosopher's lips, but ignores it. The ordinary citizen is the one you consider to be your reader in the future. The ordinary citizen chooses whether your vision will come to be or not. You weren't talking about nationality. And do you really think they won't notice that the author is a fascist nationalist? A fascist and methodical rapist with a life sentence in Kronstadt for at least 4 murders. And the book is a mixture of historical philosophy, eugenics, and rape. It's about history, Conrad. You are a smart man, but your pansy education shows. You still think that history is done through master's theses and such. Well, what is it done through then? The experienced interviewer doesn't lose his cool. Rape? VIDKUN snatches a page from Gessel's notebook. A guard in a dark blue uniform jumps into frame after the sudden movement and hits the tribesman on the wrist with his rubber baton. Herd yelps in pain. The paper flies into the air. 3-time Oscar Zorn Award nominee, world-famous documentarian Conrad Gessel, raises his hand in the direction of the prison guard. He lowers the baton, but remains alert next to the man stroking his wrist. Pen. VIDKUN looks angrily in Gessel's direction. Clenching the writing stick in his fist, the prisoner casts triumphant glances toward the guard. You, if you'd be so kind, hand me my page, too. The rubber baton has already risen menacingly into the air when Gessel tears a new sheet from the notepad and places it on the steel table in front of Herd. See now? Crossbreeding. VIDKUN's carefully combed hair has become tangled in the struggle, and a single light brown strand hangs in front of his eyes. Keeping the page from sliding with his elbow, Herd tries to put the pen on the paper. It feels sharp and dangerous in his hand. The man suddenly gets angry. Please release my other hand. I can't do it like this. At Gessel's pleading look, the guard takes the key ring from his belt. Now Herd directly addresses the viewer. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors came here, to the land on the edge of the world. They came here on dog sleds through the insurmountable Pale. Only the strongest-willed specimens retained their sanity during this heroic transition. Weak-spirited, continental specimens were left behind, at the mercy of the Pale. Our disciplined ancestors simply separated them from the herd, those who lost their minds. Thus, only the Hakons and Gudruns, with a purified, steadfast soul and unbreakable will, stepped onto the grey soil of Katla. In half a century, these primogens hunted all the mammoths of Katla to death. They flourished. VIDKUN Herd triumphantly stretches his freed hands and begins to draw tiny dots on the sheet of paper. This is elementary eugenic law, Conrad, elementary. The more challenging the environment, the further the human develops from step mural form. Here in the dark, snowy expanse, man is not meant to live here, simply to survive. A superhuman tendency must arise. Gessel lifts his shoulders in anticipation, but he doesn't interrupt, and nods in understanding. The superhuman tendency is not limited by moral anachronisms. Superhuman tendency is weight lust. Everything is possible for him, nothing is forbidden. Through blood, in the dark of night, from one winter to another, it passes from generation to generation. You too, Conrad, have a superhuman tendency in you. Conrad nods. An unhealthy redness spreads on VIDKUN face. The redness is somewhere between a fever and an allergic reaction. All of us, including you, are obliged to amplify this primordial being in yourself, like the jaws of a predator that grow tougher as they chew meat. The duty you have to the litter, that they too should have big jaws, the kind that can hold a lot of meat. VIDKUN admires the artwork, with a proud smile that in no way wants to match his face. The camera can't yet see exactly what's happening on the page, but Gessel reclines closer to the picture. A rare creature, the middle one of them, a unique treasure. The projector buzzes. Jesper takes a wrapped copy of VIDKUN's paper from the folder and places it on the coffee table. Something strange is carefully mapped on the page, an elegant constellation of dozens of dots. Khan's mouth drops open in horror. ICP agent Therese Matajek, coldly composed, makes a note in his notebook. You can't imagine, Conrad, how hard I fucked her. You can't imagine. VIDKUN Herd manages to say before Jesper hastily turns the projector off. June, 20 years ago. The pine forest on the cliff by the beach is dim and cool. The sun is scorching above the tops of the pines, but only a few spots of light reach down here, where the sand is woven into the maze of roots, like the golden floor of the sea. For a moment, there is complete silence under the trees. From 100 meters away, you can hear the heather crunching under the sneakers of the approaching boys, until the sea breeze rustles the pine needle ceiling again. The trunks of the trees sway slightly, a maze of dark orange columns, sides streaked gold from the sun. The sweet smell of tree sap floats beneath the forest, the dusty aftertaste of chamomile, a sweet and bitter bouquet in little Therese's nostrils. A match is lit. The thick puffs of smoke rising from the astra he stole from his father sweep away all other scents, framed cleanly in a single beam of light. Therese is enjoying himself, his windbreaker under his head. He practices making smoke rings in the glow of light. Just a few kilometers from here, in the settlement, is his father's diplomatic villa. That house, so close to the popular summer beach, had suddenly made Therese a popular boy 3 weeks ago, at the beginning of summer vacation. Just as the other's footsteps become clearly audible from behind the hill, Therese blows a small ring through the big, billowing smoke jellyfish. "Oh, I did it," he exclaims, demolishing his masterpiece. "What?" asks Jesper, who has reached the hill, in shorts and a sailor's shirt. "What did you manage to do?" "The smoke ring went through the second one." "You smoke now?" Jesper is shocked. "Want some?" "Astra, it's the strongest." "Give me one, Therese, I'd take one." The bellowing Khan reaches Jesper's side. A pair of binoculars hangs from his neck on a leather strap. "There." Therese throws the package towards Khan, who fumbles with it. With his tongue sticking out from the effort, he secures the package without dropping it and examines it through his glasses. "Cool," is Khan's professional assessment of the box. The white stars slide along the sky-blue cardboard. "Pointless," says Jesper out of the corner of his mouth, and steps ahead of Therese to explore the land on top of another hill. "That shirt of yours is pointless." Therese lazily lifts himself up on his elbows and offers Khan a light from his matchbox. Jesper narrows his eyes and raises his hand to his face like a captain, examining the forest floor in front of them. Pointless, And he didn't think so. She complimented me on it on the last day. You think? Jesper turns to Con. The boy smokes like a beginner. Listen, Con, do you remember? In the wardrobe, Annie said this is a beautiful shirt. She said so. Therese, she really said that. Fersen jumped in like a bug and told Annie from me that she has a beautiful dress, and something about her hair, too. It was very funny. You can never miss an opportunity to be polite, Con says with a smile and coughs out some smoke. Let's go. The three boys move up towards the bank in the glimmering patches of light under the trees. Con throws away the smoke with an unsuccessful flick and begins twirling his binoculars on their strap. His backpack shakes as he accelerates down the descent. Running down the slopes, most of the boys jump over the heather bushes. Only Jesper, worrying about his white trousers, strolls with dignity, hands in his pockets as if on an evening walk. The rumbling of the sea grows in the trees the closer they get to their usual spot on the cliff. There are signs posted on the log fence marking the danger of collapse, depicting a man falling down a precipitous slope. Across the footpath, climbing into the bushes right below the sign, Con explains to Therese. Look, they call it the North Sea, but it's actually an ocean. Theoretically, it crosses the Pale and turns into your egress sea, up until Grod. This makes the North Sea interinsulary. It's a question of classification. Together as a trio, they try to keep the conversation as academic as possible for the third week in a row, in order to impress everyone with the character of their business when they come back in the fall. Jesper, lagging behind as he moves cautiously through the bushes, continues in the same spirit. We didn't have such a word as ocean in Katla. For us, everything was a sea. A vast aquamarine body of water spreads out in front of the boys from the high cliff edge. Clouds are breaking in the pale blue sky. The bright, shining sun is reflected as a streak down on the water. The ocean waves lazily and majestically wash a long strip of sand there. Charlotte's Yawl. The wind disappears for a moment, and a wave of heat hits the boys in the face. Insects emerge from the foliage of blooming cinnamon rose bushes. The beach under the cliff curves long towards the sea, all the way to the half-circular hotel at the top of the peninsula. There are small human spots on the sand, with red and white striped parasols. The boys take a seat on the patch of grass between the cinnamon rose bushes, where the crumbly sandstone cliff quickly disappears from sight. Many times Therese has theorized how one could basically jump down along this soft rock slope. He would land on the sand embankment that levels off 3 meters out, and from there he would slide on his heels. Jesper worries about how his clothes would hold up in such a case. Con just stands out for his cowardice. Even now, Therese sits closest to the edge, while Jesper knocks the binoculars out of Con's hand. Spots of the sun are reflected on the curved eyelets of the unit. In the dark, cool heart of the glass, the image of people on the beach below, of summer Nordics with their towels and parasols, amplifies. The image sharpens in turn to be acceptable for Con. The left +7, and the right +4. Con bought the binoculars with his own money, in Vasa, from a hunter's shop. Once Jesper has also given up scanning the beach, it's Therese's turn. With the rubber nose pads pressed into his eye sockets and cheeks, more and more freckled from the sun, tight from squinting, he has to say, I guess not yet. It's only 10 o'clock. They'll come. While Con and Therese compare the smoke brands, the Vossen trash is too light, the Grod stuff stronger still. Con nods excitedly and praises everything. Jesper aims the binoculars at the beach like a sniper scope. This time, relentlessly. The crosshair lands on the white parasol, but does not find the red flowers it is looking for. Vertical lines move over young families, collapsing sandcastles, and brown-bodied sun orbiters. Stop at 2 blonde girls, but then slide on. It's not them. Must have drifted it too far. Jesper focuses closer. Somewhere from 200 meters away, a familiar premonition, a distant constellation. A vastness of matter emerges in the dimness of his heart. He waves his hand to let the boys know that something is going on. Con and Therese shield their eyes from the sun with their hands and look down at the beach. Refining the focus of the Zool lenses once again, The pale pink veil sharpens into a belly in Jesper's eyes. Breathing shakes the eye specks from the girl's navel above the solar plexus, where the curved line of the chest converges into a ring holding together the top of a two-piece bathing suit. White ribbons cut the skin on her shoulders, and the prepubescent breasts under the tricot fabric rise when the girl breathes. The wheel clicks twice at the point where the viewing tubes converge, and in the expanded field of vision, on a beige beach towel, the girl turns onto her stomach. Her ash-blonde head of hair and familiar round cheeks flash under a pair of sunglasses. Lazily, Annie Ellen Lund raises herself on her elbows and buries her face in a girl's magazine. Above her small butt, a curiously fine constellation of birthmarks begins, running up her back to her wing bone. Cooled horror seeps through the seals of the windows into the Kino Cafe, where three minds are trying to maintain the surface tension of their coping for the 20th year. Khan shrugs his shoulders. Who knows about that? Who knows? I haven't read a single line of it all this time. It's not recorded anywhere. Therese puts his pencil on the table. Such a thing is called a control fact. It is intentionally left out of a person's identification record, even from the official documentation. I have these 3 folders in my head, and there's not one line about it. He knows that. Look at him. Jesper's face remains clear. For him, this is all a stage that has already been passed. And that's why this Gosta came to me. The officials simply shrugged. Perhaps he heard somewhere at work that I knew the girls. They were all quite confused there. Here it also does not explain further. And by the way, I don't believe that shit. He had some boys there because of some principle, but here it prefers big-breasted Gudruns. It doesn't fit the profile. It's not possible time-wise. Khan perks up. He was 600 kilometers away 5 hours earlier and bought a crankshaft and a gasket for his fucking raping machine. I don't know, some kind of gasket lobe. After the construction noise of the infamous rape machine, VIDKUN Heer's neighbor finally called the police, and that was the beginning of the end for him. Inayat Khan, on the other hand, looks at the ICP agent with seriousness in his eyes. Therese, you have to open the folder now. Continue research. Somehow he must know it, and it's the only serious lead right now besides those crappy letters. You have to. You cannot imagine how bad things are now. This is the worst time to dig out any old stuff. There is no more support for Monday. Half of everything is in a state of war. Nobody knows if, for example, Orange Enric still exists. They'll let me go if I start this shit. No, but Therese, you could still do something about it. Jesper, slightly irritated, is not interested in the impending world war. You do this. It's your job. Do it. Now wait, you two. Of course I will. I had that feeling right from the start when you invited me to your class reunion thing. Do you really think I thought you were nostalgic? I myself have this folder open all the time. You know that this folder never closes. You just have to hope that the locals will take it easy. They hate the co-op anyway. Very rarely does anyone bother to check whether any interrogation papers have been signed there. Khan smiles slyly. Interrogation papers? So you're still planning on going there? To Kronstadt? Tomorrow? It's good to know you're still cool, Therese. Jesper smiles too, slightly uncomfortable with his flushed cheeks and pressing tone. Hardcore. That's fine then. Therese agrees. This is a very good thing. 20 years. There should be no hope left after all that time. But there is hope then? Jesper intelligently tilts his head, which is still a little too big for his shoulders. Yes. Very good, Jesper. You have been very good. Bill, the interior designer, who has been out of active work for the past 2 years, snaps his fingers at the waitress and points his index finger at the table. Nights have not come easily to him, but today everything is different. Tonight, Jesper can treat himself to small sweets, silly little treats. There's a night outside the window of the cube in the dark, where everything is possible. It is also possible that somewhere in the hidden corners of this world, under the permafrost of Lake Vostok, or in the arid desert where Ramot Karzai disappeared without a trace, deep from the lungs of Grodd. Somewhere they can still be found, as they were then, as little ones, and thereby also become small again. Above the clouds, at the foot of the Corpus Mundi, you only have to lift the veil of raindrops just a little, and you will touch them. How good you were for not giving up. Everyone else kept forgetting about us. The night sky was dotted with cold stars. The dark blue dome of the sky swirled above our heads. But we knew you were still looking for us.